What if everything you were taught about the galaxy, about power, progress, and who truly built the stars was a lie? Buried beneath forgotten worlds lies a truth older than time itself. Humanity didn't vanish. They ascended, leaving behind secrets so powerful they could change the fate of every species. And now that truth is waking up. One signal, one discovery, one choice. Will they rise together or fall divided? If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move toward this wonderful story. Dr. Lionel Voss stood alone in the quiet glow of his outpost window, watching the stars shimmer across the blackness of space. It had been months since his last visitor and nearly a year since anything interesting came through his scanners. Life on the edge of known space was not exciting, and most researchers gave up long before reaching this level of isolation. But Lionel was different. He wasn't here for recognition or council praise. He was here for the truth, whatever it turned out to be. Varnus 12 was an old desert world, long labeled as lifeless and unremarkable by the Interstellar Council. It had no vegetation, no atmosphere worth speaking of, and certainly no intelligent life. Most explorers skipped it entirely. But that week, something strange happened. As Lionel ran a routine scan across the system's surface, one of his instruments flickered, then flashed. An energy signal. It pulsed in regular intervals, deep beneath the planet's crust. Not a natural spike, not background radiation. This was different. Too precise. Too intentional. He blinked at the screen, unsure if his equipment had malfunctioned. "Seren," he called. His assistant, a quiet but sharp-minded technician named Seren Halda, leaned into the control room from the adjoining lab. "Did you reroute anything through the seismic monitors?" Seren raised an eyebrow and shook her head. "No. Why?" "Because Varnus just spoke," Lionel said, motioning her over. She studied the signal with a frown. The readings made no sense. The frequency was steady, like a heartbeat, but it was coming from 10 kilometers below the surface, from solid rock. Serene tapped a few keys, filtering the signal through the system's language decoder. The translation feed stalled, then produced 4 words. Waiting. Return. Access. Home. They both stared at the words in silence. "That can't be right," Seren whispered. Lionel's eyes narrowed. "Send a report to the council. Request permission for a field survey." The council replied within hours. The message was short and cold. Varnus 12 is a classified zone. Energy signature likely instrument error. Field survey denied. Denied. That word carried weight. The council rarely blocked scientific surveys unless they had something to hide. Lionel had worked with them long enough to recognize the signs. He had stumbled onto something they didn't want found. "Looks like we go around them," he said, standing up and heading toward the docking bay. "Are you serious?" Serene asked. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were wide. "If they find out..." "They already know," Lionel said. "And they've chosen silence. We can't." Within a day, they had prepped their aging research shuttle, the Mira, and slipped quietly off the station without raising alarms. The journey to Varnus 12 only took hours. As they approached the planet, Lionel felt the pressure in his chest grow. Not from fear, but from something else. A strange sense of being watched. Not by the council, but by something older. They landed near the signal's origin, an area of flat rock surrounded by jagged cliffs. The ground was dry and cracked, and the wind carried no sound. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions. Serene activated the scanners while Lionel walked the terrain. He paused near a rocky outcrop where the readings spiked suddenly. There was something beneath the dust, an outline, faint but unmistakable. A doorway. Serene joined him, her boots crunching softly over stone. "It's a sealed structure," she said, checking her device. "At least a kilometer wide. We're standing on the roof." With some effort, they cleared the entrance, revealing a smooth stone door. No handles, no seams, just a circle etched into its surface. Lionel reached out and pressed his palm against the center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door glowed faintly. It opened. Cool air spilled out, dry but breathable. They exchanged a glance, then stepped inside. The tunnel was long and curved downward. Lights embedded in the walls flickered to life, guiding them. The deeper they went, the clearer it became. This wasn't a ruin. It was still alive. After nearly an hour of descent, they reached a chamber lit by a soft blue glow. At the center stood a tall pillar of crystal, its surface shifting with streams of data. Lionel approached it slowly, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The pillar activated. A shape formed above it, a hologram, hazy at first, then clear. It was a figure, humanoid, eyes calm, expression unreadable. Its voice was soft and ancient. "Welcome to Archive Site 9. Access confirmed. Humanity recognized." Seren gasped. Humanity? But this place is older than recorded history. Lionel's mind raced. If this was real, if the archive was telling the truth, then everything the Council believed about the origins of spacefaring life was wrong. The signal they'd found, it wasn't a mistake. It was a call from the past, a warning, or maybe an invitation. "We need to go deeper," Lionel whispered, and somewhere far above them, the stars held their breath. Captain Oren Seye guided the shuttle carefully through the narrow atmosphere of Varnus 12. He had flown through asteroid, storms and near-star gravitational wakes, but this descent made his hands tighten around the controls. It wasn't turbulence that bothered him. It was the silence. The planet made no sound, no wind, no signal interference, no static. Just the quiet weight of a world that had been asleep for longer than time itself. Beside him, Professor Inya Loren watched the readouts with wide, curious eyes. She was one of the galaxy's few experts in pre-council civilizations, and this mission had brought her back from retirement. When Lionel Voss contacted her with evidence of human architecture from millions of years ago, she hadn't believed it. But after reviewing his data, she couldn't stay away. As they landed near the ancient structure Lionel had uncovered, a quiet hum passed through the ship's systems. Not an error, more like a signal, as if the planet knew they had returned. Oren glanced at the blinking lights across the dashboard. "That's not normal." "It's responding to us," Inya whispered. The ramp lowered, revealing the dusty surface and the dark, curved entrance to the underground facility. Lionel and Seren were waiting. They had cleared more of the entrance since their last descent, and now the structure rose like a low, sleeping giant out of the rock. No marks of age, no cracks. It looked untouched by time. "This place, it knew we were coming," Seren said, stepping forward to greet the new arrivals. "It opened to us, not randomly, on purpose." As the group moved down the long corridor, the soft blue lights flickered again, growing brighter with each step. The deeper they went, the more the air seemed to change. Less stale, more alive. It wasn't just a structure. It was something else. Something aware. They reached the central chamber where Lionel had first activated the hologram. The pillar stood silently now, waiting. He stepped forward and touched it again. The lights shimmered and the figure returned. Tall, calm and human in form. Recognition confirmed. Additional life forms acknowledged. Access expanding. The walls lit up with shifting patterns. Lines of symbols moved across the stone, glowing, changing, rearranging themselves in ways that seemed both mathematical and beautiful. Inya raised a trembling hand. "That's not just decoration, that's a language and a design pattern like a blueprint." Serene stepped closer, studying the glowing lines. "These aren't council designs, not from any species we've ever documented. It's a mix. Geometry from the Andalith, curvature like the Nara scripts, crystal harmonics from the old star builders, but it doesn't match any of them exactly. It's something new. Or something older," Lionel said. "Something everything else came from." The hologram changed, showing them a map of the galaxy. Dozens, no, hundreds, of points of light began to glow. Each one pulsed with a soft, golden hue. Inya reached forward to interact with one. The light expanded, showing another archive on a different planet, long buried beneath layers of council infrastructure. "This is a network," she said breathlessly. "A system of archives spread across known space. And they're waking up." Oren rubbed his beard. "Why now? Why not 1,000 years ago?" the hologram answered. "Archives remain dormant until proper genetic, emotional, and technological markers are met. You are the first in 12 million years to satisfy all conditions." Seren looked at Lionel. "That means we were meant to find this, not just randomly and chosen." "The builders didn't just leave behind machines," Lionel said. "They left tests, and we just passed one." The hologram displayed another image, this time of a city. A massive city that floated above the clouds, its buildings glowing softly, alive with energy. Human figures walked alongside machines that looked organic, graceful, and strangely peaceful. "These are the builders?" Inya asked. "Ancient humans," Lionel answered. "Before the council, before history, they weren't just travelers. They were architects of reality." Suddenly the ground trembled. Not a violent quake, more like a heartbeat. The archive pulsed. The lights flickered. New hallways began opening in the stone, revealing more chambers. "Security systems have been deactivated," the hologram said. "Further access permitted." As the team moved into the newly revealed section, they came upon something unexpected. Machines still active. Devices humming softly. Glass tubes filled with faintly glowing liquid. Storage systems. Data cores. The air smelled faintly of ozone and metal. Oren leaned over a console. This one's still connected to an external relay. Inya's hands flew across a screen, activating a playback. What they saw made their breath catch. A message. Not from the hologram, but from a human, recorded long before their time. "If you are seeing this, then the galaxy has forgotten us. That is good. We did not leave to rule. We left to protect, to sleep, to give space for others to grow. But when the right minds return, the lights will come back on. Welcome. It's time to learn what we were and what you can be." The message ended and the room was silent again. Lionel turned to the group, his voice low. "We've just opened a door, and whatever's behind it will change everything." Outside, in the cold, silent sky above Varnus 12, one of the glowing points on the galaxy map pulsed brighter. Another archive had awakened. Darren Merrick sat in the back of the shuttle, staring at the transmission that had just lit up his screen. It was a signal from Varnus 12, scrambled, half-broken, but unmistakable. He wasn't supposed to see it. As a junior officer working in the Council's communications division, his job was simple. Review and archive public traffic, mark anything, flagged by senior command, and keep quiet. But this message wasn't marked public. It had been locked, buried in the restricted feed. His curiosity got the better of him, and when he ran it through a basic decoder, what he saw changed everything.
Human hologram.
Not just a simulation or reconstruction. An ancient message speaking of forgotten knowledge, archives hidden across the galaxy, and a network left behind by a civilization millions of years old. The builders, humans. It wasn't just a rumor anymore. By the time Darren arrived on Varnus 12 in a borrowed scout ship, the sky above the planet was already glowing with unusual energy patterns. Council ships had formed a perimeter just outside the atmosphere, but none had entered. Something was keeping them out. On the ground, inside the ruins, Lionel, Seren, Captain Oren, and Professor Inya stood before the central archive, its core glowing brighter than before. The entire complex was alive now, reacting to the signals from other sites that had started activating one by one across the stars. Darren entered cautiously, but Lionel welcomed him with a nod. "You came." "I had to," Darren said. "The Council knows more than they ever let on. They've kept records of these sites for years, covered them up, destroyed some. But they can't stop this one, not anymore. The archive's guardian, the hologram known only as the Luminary, appeared again. Its voice filled the chamber like a gentle wave. Council presence detected. Authorization not required. Truth will proceed. Professor Inya was studying the expanding map of archive sites. Look at this. Dozens of worlds, many of them inside Council territory. They've been sitting on top of this knowledge for centuries. They didn't create their technology, Lionel said. They just inherited it, like thieves in an empty museum. The hologram shifted, and the room transformed. Stars appeared, all around them, forming a giant projection of the galaxy. Some points glowed blue, others red, and a few flashed with golden light. The Luminary explained. Blue markers, active archives. Red, destroyed sites. Golden, protected systems. Darren pointed to one of the red points. That was my home sector. 5 years ago they said the planet collapsed due to seismic instability. But now I wonder, was that another cover-up? Oren folded his arms. The Council's been afraid of this. Not just the knowledge, but what it means. If the builders weren't extinct, if they moved beyond physical form, then the Council isn't the peak of civilization, they're just middlemen. The archive pulsed again, and a new transmission began. It wasn't a message this time. It was a live feed. Across the galaxy, beings of all kinds were watching as the archives lit up on their own worlds. Screens blinked on in council chambers, school halls, city plazas. The truth was spreading, whether the Council liked it or not. Who controls the message? Darren asked. No one, the Luminary replied. Knowledge is not a weapon, it is a seed. It must grow where it is needed. Back in orbit, Council warships started broadcasting warnings. They ordered the facility shut down. They demanded silence, but it was too late. The truth had taken root. Species across the stars were asking questions, searching for ruins, examining ancient signals that once seemed meaningless. Then the archive showed a final image. A Council assault ship years ago, destroying a similar structure on a distant world. The footage was clear, undeniable. Professor Inya stared in horror. They've done this before, more than once, 17 times, the Luminary confirmed. To preserve the illusion of power, to control the narrative of progress. Seren stepped forward. But why? Why hide the truth about humanity? Why hide the builders? Because truth is dangerous, Darren answered. It frees people. If every species knew that their potential had been kept from them, they'd demand change. And the Council wouldn't survive that. As silence fell over the room, the archive began to change again. This time, a tall structure rose from the floor, unfolding like a flower. At the top, a crystal device activated, pulsing a signal into deep space. It's calling them, Lionel whispered. The ones who left. The Luminary turned to him. Ascended humans have not interfered, but they have watched. If you prove ready, they will answer. What makes us ready? Inya asked. Willingness to learn, the Luminary said. To share, not rule. To build together. Above them, outside the atmosphere, the Council ships attempted to break through the planet's new defense grid. They fired low-powered tests, then stronger beams, but nothing touched the surface. Every shot dissolved before impact. Oren looked up. So what now? The Luminary responded calmly. Now the galaxy chooses. A decision had to be made. Hide the truth or help it spread. Each of them knew what it meant. There would be no going back. Darren stepped closer to the projection and tapped one of the glowing archive points. Then let's make sure no one ever has to dig through lies again. And all across the galaxy, more lights began to glow. Mira Talon sat beneath the sky of her homeworld, Narl, watching the stars blink like quiet messages from the past. Her people had always believed they were alone in their struggles, held, backed by laws, technology limits, and a distant council that decided what knowledge was safe to share. But everything changed the day the archives awakened. She had seen it herself. The glowing light rising from the nearby ruins that everyone thought were just leftover mining debris. The light had revealed something deeper, something older. A voice, a message, a history hidden for millions of years. When Mira touched the crystal pillar that day, her tablet had flooded with information. Not just facts and files, but ideas, designs, maps, blueprints for machines her people couldn't even dream of. At first it was overwhelming, but it was also freeing. Her world was one of many discovering the truth. And they were not alone. All across the stars, other species were doing the same. Learning, asking questions, and for the first time, ignoring the Council's silence. On Varnus 12, Dr. Lionel Voss watched another transmission spark to life. It was Mira, speaking from Narrow's capital. Her message was simple. We've opened our archive, and we're sharing it freely. To all species, no more secrets. She wasn't a leader, just a scientist like him. But her words carried weight. In the days that followed, others followed her example. Worlds that had been isolated began sharing knowledge. A new alliance started to form, not through politics but through curiosity and trust. The Luminary, still active inside the ancient archive, monitored the growing data exchange. The learning has begun, it said. Your species are adapting quickly. Lionel nodded. They were always ready. They just didn't know they had permission. In orbit, the Council's ships remained frozen outside the system. Their weapons had failed. Their orders were ignored. Their control was broken. And now they were watching history unfold from the sidelines. Some Council members resigned quietly. Others tried to salvage their reputation by supporting the change. A few still resisted. But resistance was fading fast. Inside the archive, Darren Merrick helped organize a new database, a shared library of all discoveries from the activated archives. It was no longer hidden in dark vaults or guarded by secret councils. It was open, for anyone, for everyone. Professor Inya Lauren oversaw, a council of scientists from dozens of species, guiding new researchers through information that once seemed like magic. They built new reactors, repaired damaged ecosystems, even helped crippled planets restore their natural balance using ancient human methods. Captain Oren Say now led a new exploration fleet. Not for war, not for control, but for discovery. Their ships were faster, safer, and smarter than anything the galaxy had seen before. And they all carried one symbol, a spiral of light. The mark of the builders, the mark of shared knowledge. In a quiet chamber deep within the archive, Lionel stood before the luminary again. It had something new to show him. You have guided well, it said. Now the next layer of knowledge will unlock. The walls around him lit up, revealing something different. It wasn't just about technology anymore. It was about understanding, growth, balance, a path not just to knowledge, but to something higher. The luminary spoke again. This is the path of ascension. It is not power. It is perspective, patience, unity. Lionel felt something shift in his chest. It was more than discovery. It was purpose. A galaxy once ruled by fear was beginning to heal. The archives were teaching not only how to build, but how to build wisely. And then it happened. The sky above Varnus 12 shimmered as a new light appeared. Not a ship, but a presence. A figure of energy and thought, shaped like a human but glowing with something deeper. The ascended humans had arrived, not with thunder or threats, but with calm. The being spoke, its voice echoing in every language. You have learned. You have shared. You have not fallen into fear. For this we offer the next step, not today, not tomorrow, but when you are ready. The reaction was immediate. Worlds watched, listened, cried, laughed. It wasn't just a signal, it was a beginning. On Naril, Mira watched the stars with tears in her eyes. On Varnus 12, Lionel recorded the message with steady hands. And across the galaxy, species once divided by fear now shared messages of hope. The Council, once the sole authority, now sat in quiet reflection. They weren't destroyed. They were being replaced not by force but by truth. As the stars shimmered in silent applause, the ascended being gave one last message. The stars were never meant to be ruled. They were meant to be explored. Together. And with that, it vanished, leaving behind only light. The archives remained, glowing softly, waiting for the next question.